Ms. Hill, we spent 6 weeks together, didn't we?
We did.
And during those 6 weeks, you were as helpful to me as you could be, correct?
I was.
Accommodated just about every request I made.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Wait a minute. Where were we? Oh, yeah, we're old friends.
I want to be sure you can be heard. That was the microphone that was supposed to. You're fine where you are. Absolutely fine.
Yes, ma'am. It was a staged microphone that was obscuring my ability to question a witness.
Yeah. Well, what I'm wondering is whether you can be heard without a microphone. Do we need to try to get a microphone up on this podium? Yeah, that would be good. All right.
I don't know who's supposed to hear this other than you, but I assume they can hear us. The court reporter, I'm sorry. She's more important, not as important as you.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, yeah, we're old friends, right? We spent 6 weeks together in a very pressure-filled situation, correct?
It was a long 6 weeks.
It was a long 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, you were helpful to me in a number of different ways, accommodating friends that I had that wanted to come watch the trial, for instance, correct?
That's correct.
You even allowed me to use the private restroom down on the first floor so I didn't have to stand in line with the rest of the people trying to get breaks, correct?
Correct.
So we have no animosity towards each other. You didn't do something to me and I didn't do something to you during that trial, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, given that, I'm going to ask you some questions today that may indicate to you that I have some antagonism towards you. Let me disabuse you of that. I'm here doing a job representing my client. And you've been around the court system for decades, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you understand what we're doing here today.
Yes.
Now, let me understand a couple of things. I think, and I've read your book, some editions of your book. There's several. We got a bunch of emails in which you have drafts that you forwarded to your co-author, correct?
Your Honor,
Correct.
objection. I believe I would object to relevance. I believe any draft she sent to her co-author with the book is beyond the scope of this inquiry here today.
Overruled. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. And in those drafts, you say certain things about the trial, about the process, which you later did not include in the final version. It's called editing. Is that correct?
I would agree with that.
Okay. Now, let's talk about this book for just a second. When did you first decide you were going to write a book?
I think a thought was there, a very fleeting thought, before the trial.
Did you take any steps before the trial or at the initiation of the trial to begin writing this book or working with somebody on this book?
Oh, no, sir.
When did you and your co-author get together?
It was several weeks after the trial.
Okay. Did you talk to anybody about the fact you were going to write a book before the trial?
There were several anchors and several journalists that I did speak with about the possibility of writing a book.
I'm so disorganized, I apologize. Did you seek assistance in this trial from other clerks of court?
Yes, sir, I did.
And who were they?
Rhonda McElveen, who is the Barnwell County Clerk of Court, and Renee Elvis from the Horry County Clerk of Court.
And Were they there with you the entire 6 weeks?
No.
I mean, how long were they there? Or how often were they there?
Rhonda McElveen was there as often as she could be, probably several times a week. Renee Elvis helped me during the jury selection.
And did she begin, that is, Ms. McElveen, did she begin working with you prior to jury selection?
Can you repeat that question?
We began jury selection, I think, on January 23rd, correct?
Correct.
Was she working with you or consulting with you prior to the 23rd?
No, sir.
Did you have any conversation with her about the trial?
Not until she got to the trial on I can't remember the exact day she came.
Okay. Now, is she a friend of yours?
She was a friend, yes.
Was?
Well, she is a friend.
Okay.
Yes.
So she's done nothing to make you any less a friend.
No, sir.
Now, did you tell her about the time of the trial that you were going to write a book? That you had thought about and were going to write a book?
I can't remember exactly. I think we did have a conversation about a book possibly in the future.
And did you tell her you're going to write a book because you thought it would make a lot of money?
Oh, no, sir.
You never said that.
No, sir.
And did you tell her that you were going to write a book to make a bunch of money so you could buy a lake lot and build a house on it?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, did you ever tell her that you had given a juror a ride home, that you had accompanied Mr. Bill, what's his last name?
Bill Polk.
You're right. That you and he took a juror home one night? Did you tell her that? Did you take a juror home one night?
I didn't take a juror home one night.
Did
No,
Mr.
sir.
Mr. Polk and you take a juror home one night?
No, sir, we didn't.
Okay, you never gave a juror a ride in a car with Mr. Polk or without?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, also, during the trial, your daughter ended up on the Venari, is that right?
She did.
And she was coming up, and did you talk to me and Mr. Waters about putting her on the jury if at all possible?
I'm not sure that we wanted her to be on the jury if at all possible, but I think the question was, would she make a good juror? And I said she sure would.
Now, I don't think we asked you. I think you told us she would make a great juror, did you not?
I remember you asking.
Okay. I was considering putting your daughter on the jury.
Yes, sir.
And who does she work for?
She works for Compass South.
Did she work for the Sheriff's Department at some point?
No, sir.
Okay. Did she work in law enforcement at all?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. How many jury rooms were there?
We have 2 jury rooms in Colleton.
In this trial, how many jury rooms did you have? How many?
2.
Okay, so the entire jury wasn't together at any one time? They were separated into 2 rooms?
Yes.
Okay. And when they're separated into 2 jury rooms like that, are they next door to each other? Are they down the hall from each other?
They are next door to each other.
Okay. So, but if you close the door to one, can they hear what's going on in the other one?
Some women probably have very good hearing, and men too, but I would say probably not.
Okay. Are there restrooms in both of the jury's rooms?
There are.
Okay. Are there 2 restrooms or just one?
There's one restroom in each jury room.
Okay. Were either one of those restrooms designated men and women, or did everybody use the same one?
They were unisex.
They were unisex. Okay. Now, prior to your testimony here today, have you met with the Attorney General's office in Sled?
I have.
On how many occasions?
I want to say twice.
Okay. And remember when the first time was?
I think the first time was in September.
Okay. And the second time was last week?
Yes, sir.
And that was in Walterboro?
Yes, right.
And you all spent about 4.5 hours together?
I want to say maybe 2 hours together.
Okay. And in those 2 hours, you went over your testimony here today?
They asked me questions.
Did they ever correct your answers or suggest you answered differently?
Oh, no.
No.
Oh,
So
no.
you just went through what you went through in 20 minutes here. It took 2 hours to go through when you were with them.
There were times when I would step out of the room and come back in. But I would say we were there for about 2 hours.
Now, you have described in your book your role as Switzerland. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that is that you should not be in any way opinionated about what's going on in the trial. Is that correct?
That's true.
Okay. Yet in your book you indicated a number of different points during the trial you had concluded he was guilty. Is that correct?
I think,
Your Honor, I object at this point. I don't know if her conclusions in the book are in any way relevant to what occurred during the trial and whether or not there was any communications with the jurors, which is the sole issue that we're here for today, is whether or not Ms. Hill had any extraneous influence on the jurors. And so I think this is going a little far afield. We object to the relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled. You may continue.
Let me give you an example. You indicate, writing back from Moselle, that you and 3 other people were in a car, and you all decided adamantly, I think was the word you used, that he was guilty, that he had killed his wife and son. Is that what you put in the book?
I can't remember if I put that in the book, but if you say I did, then I will
Did
agree
that
with
happen?
you. We did have a conversation about what each of us thought,
And all 4 agreed that he was guilty, correct?
and none of us were jurors.
No, trust me, I know that. But you had an abiding conviction, at least by the time of the Moselle visit, that he was guilty. And the other people in the car with you were bailiffs, were they not?
No.
Who were they?
Some were not bailiffs. One was a court reporter. One was our security officer, head security, and another was a deputy sheriff.
Okay. But the 4 of y'all rode out there, and based on what, and I mean, I can, you want me to read to you how chilled you were and how you felt that poor Paul and Maggie had been executed by him on that scene, that visiting the scene convinced you that he was a horrible, horrible murderer? You want me to read that to you? Or you will concede that's what you wrote?
I will concede that's what I wrote, but if I may, I would say that a lot of that is poetic license in writing a book and in making it sound like that.
Okay, so some of it's poetic license, and some of it you just stole. You purloined it from that BBC writer, right?
Your Honor, again, I object to not only the relevance but the scope of cross. I would object also under Rule 608. I don't believe that that's appropriate cross-examination.
Overruled. You may continue, Mr. Harpootlian.
Did you steal part of the book?
I did plagiarize,
Okay,
Mr. Hartfield.
that's stealing, isn't it?
And it is, and for
Okay.
that I'm very sorry, and I have apologized.
Okay. And that makes it okay?
What I did, and I apologized for that.
And part of the book is, you say, literary license, exaggeration?
I wouldn't call it exaggeration.
Okay. Now let me ask you this: is Switzerland, and this is, you're saying this is happening while you're supposed to be Switzerland, you decided the defendant's guilty, and if Ms. McElmeen says that it's going to make you more money if he's found guilty, don't you think it's reasonable to assume that you may have crossed the line from time to time?
Your Honor, I object to the form of the question, assuming facts not in evidence.
Overruled.
Can you repeat that question one more time,
I'm
Mr.
not going to
Hartfield?
repeat it. Let me just move on to something else. Let me ask you, you had interactions with some jurors, and I believe in a conference in the judges' chambers, you indicated that you had seen a post on, is it Walterboro Word of Mouth?
Again, I object. I think he's delving now into the Facebook inquiry. We believe, again, that that's irrelevant to the inquiry, for Your Honor.
I will allow limited, he's, as I understand it, trying to impeach her testimony and explore her credibility. And I think I've already told Mr. Harpootlian that I don't want a whole trial about the business of Facebook and the egg juror, but I will allow limited examination on this point. You may proceed, Mr. Harpootlian.
Am I oversimplifying that? I mean, it's in your book. You saw something on Walterboro word of mouth, which appeared to you to be from the ex-husband of one of your jurors. Is that correct? Am I oversimplifying that?
I remember reading one night something on Walterboro word of mouth, and when I was in the courtroom on a Monday morning listening to the judge and the attorneys talking about a matter, it sounded like it was relevant to each other.
Okay. And you became aware somehow that this juror had a restraining order out for her ex-husband?
She told me that herself.
Okay. And tell me how it came for her to tell you about that. Where did she tell you?
She was very talkative, and when I was instructed by Judge Newman to go and get her from out of the jury room with a deputy following me, she was talking to me all the way back to the judge's chambers, and she mentioned that there were restraining orders out when they had divorced.
So how did the judge, who brought it to the judge's attention about this Walterboro word of mouth thing?
I let the judge know, thinking that it could be related.
Okay, and you let the judge know what?
That I had read something on Walterboro word of mouth.
Okay, and that you knew it was tied to that juror?
I didn't know that it was. I wasn't sure at all.
Who did you think it was tied to?
From what y'all were talking about at the bench, I felt like I needed to let him know, just in case it was related. There was something about an ex-husband and an ex-wife and somebody being on the jury.
You didn't tell the judge that you had found what we call the apology post? You didn't tell the judge that?
I didn't call it that, no.
You don't remember producing it, saying that producing it to the judge, saying this is a post in which the guy that posted it on Friday night says the devil got in him and he's drinking and he apologized for what he posted? You didn't produce that?
My staff did. One of my staff
But
did.
you gave that to the judge and gave it to us, did you not?
Yes, we did.
As if it were from that juror's ex-husband, correct?
Correct.
And you know it wasn't?
I don't know that, Mr. Harpootlian. No.
So, and this, you did not take that juror out and talk to her before you took her to the judge? Is that your...
I never talked to that juror about stuff like that.
Okay. Did you ever talk to the forelady of the jury, separate from the jury?
I did.
Okay. And tell us, where did that occur?
When I would go into the jury room and I would speak with the forelady, we would be in like the hallway. In the two jury rooms were side by side, and the opening to the jury room went out into the hallway, and we would be surrounded by the jurors at all times. Mr. Bill would be very, very nearby, or another bailiff as well, when we would speak.
And what did you speak to her about?
There were several instances. One was there was a juror who needed some feminine products. There was another time when Band-Aids were needed. There were times when Tylenol would be needed.
Other than items that were needed by the jury's health object, did you ever discuss, did she ever discuss with you, some issues jurors had emotionally or some issues with dissension in the jury room?
She only told me that there were some loud jurors, and it made some of the other jurors a little upset, but other than that, that's...
What did you tell her to do?
I told her if it got out of hand to write a note to the judge, and that she could sign the note and get Mr. Bill to give it to the judge, and the judge would handle that for her.
Okay. Now, you did publish a book after after this trial. Is that correct?
We did.
And you went to New York and took some of the jurors to the Today Show?
The Today Show did invite us, yes.
Now, one of those jurors that went up there with you, the day of the verdict, wore, for the first time I can remember, wore a suit to court. Do you remember that?
Your Honor, again, I would object to discussion of the jurors wearing a suit or a post-trial trip to the Today Show. I don't believe there's any connection to the inquiry that's focused for Your Honor, and that is whether or not there was any extraneous influence during the course of the trial.
I'm going to connect it, Your Honor, I believe.
All right, overruled. You may continue, Mr. Harpootlian.
Did you text, email, or communicate on the morning before final arguments were completed that to people that this was on a Thursday, that they probably, if they're going to see the trial, should come on that Thursday because it would be over by the next day? The jury would not be out very long. Did you ever communicate that, email, text, or verbally?
I do remember saying that, yes.
And why did you think the jury would not be out very long? Had you communicated with jurors?
I had not communicated with jurors about anything related to this trial at all. I've been a court reporter for at least 14 years. I was clerk of court for 3. And you just get to where you kind of see things happen as they progress, and it's a guess. It's a gut feeling, and that's all that I meant by that.
Well, why are you telling this young man who wanted passes for the next day in an email, it won't be happening tomorrow? That was or did you say, you didn't say, I don't think, you just said, you better come today if you're coming. Remember doing that?
I don't remember that. But, if he wanted to come, I knew that the trial would be ending shortly as far as testimony. So if he wanted to come, he needed to come.
Why wouldn't the jury have been out a week on a 6-week trial?
They could have.
But
They could have.
you apparently were telling the press and others that there'd be a quick verdict. Were you not?
That was just a gut feeling that I had,
Okay.
and that was my opinion.
Your opinion, you were right. The jury was out 3 hours on a 6-week trial. Correct?
That's true.
How much money did you make off that book?
There was not a whole lot of money made off of the book after paying different things and paying for some expenses that went along with that. But I want to say roughly around $100,000.
Okay. That's not a lot of money.
No, especially when you publish your own book
But that was $100,000 you made.
with my co-author.
Okay. In what period of time? 6 months?
I would say 6 months, yes.
When was the book published?
August 1st.
Okay. The trial was over. That's 6 months after the trial's over, you've published a book. Correct?
Correct.
And then I believe you've recently stopped selling the book because of the plagiarism you've admitted to, correct?
Correct.
And so there's no more money?
Correct.
Now, you also indicate in the book that the Murdaughs had a reputation of criminality, I think, is kind of what you put. Did you not?
Well, Mr. Harpootlian and my grandfather and Old Man Buster were very close.
Well, were they criminals?
I wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know. But you believed and you published that the Murdaugh family had run that part of the state and they'd participated in criminal conduct, correct?
Your Honor, again, I would object to general testimony about the alleged criminality of this family. I'm not sure how that has any bearing on the focused inquiry before the court.
He's asking about what she said in the book. I'm going to allow it.
Yes, sir. Did you say that in the book, that they were criminals?
In the book, that was more of the literary ease that we take, I think, to make a story a little more interesting for the reader.
By calling people criminals. I guess what I'm saying is this. Were they criminals?
Your Honor, again, I object to that particular question.
Overruled.
Were they criminals?
I wouldn't know that.
Okay, so you either made it up or you're lying about it? about the reputation of people that can't defend themselves? They're dead? You're going to call them criminals? You did that in the book so you could sell a book?
No, I didn't do that to sell a book.
What'd you do it for? Made it more readable, you said? Which
Liter-
sells books?
Literary ease. Yeah.
What?
Literary.
Literary what?
The literary ease that you can take when writing a book.
Literary ease you can take with writing a book? You can make stuff up? You can lie? You can lie about people?
Not with that. I think the public perception was one that it was very interesting during this time.
So you're feeding the monster out there that wants to believe bad things about the Murdaughs, and you'll make stuff up to do it. Let me give you another example. I read your book, and I found this somewhat humorous. My co-counsel did not. In describing myself and Mr. Griffin, in the book you say that I neutered him. We've both been very interested in what you meant by that. What do you mean by neutering Jim Griffin?
Mr. Harpootlian, it was a book.
Did you make it up? I know it was a book. The
Right.
Bible's a book.
Right.
I mean, just because it's a book doesn't mean you can lie in it.
It's just a word that was
The
used.
nature of that exchange.
Don't argue with the witness, but the witness, Ms. Hill, you're instructed to answer his questions. You may proceed, Mr. Harpootlian.
So let me get this straight. The book, and I'll see if I can cut to the chase on this. I could read you chapter after chapter, verse after verse, which is not true. Okay? Not true based on my experience of being in a courtroom, and not true based on knowing some of the people you described. You say that is...
Mr. Harpootlian.
I object. The counsel is just testifying right now as to his observations about the book.
Question, Mr. Harpootlian, please.
You have conceded there are things in the book that you don't know to be true, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You would concede then that you have lied in the book.
It's only because I wasn't there at the time. I can't interview my dead grandfather. I can't interview Mr. Buster. There's just things that we can't interview them on. We can go by what was written in a newspaper and get facts from that.
And take the inference that one of the Murdaughs was a pedophile. You could have printed that, and they're not here to contradict it. You could have printed anything you wanted and made it up to sell books. That's what this whole scheme was about, selling books. As you told Rhonda McElveen, if him being found guilty would sell more books.
Your Honor,
Isn't that true?
I'd object to the argumentative nature of the question, the compound question, and assuming facts not
It
in
is a
evidence.
compound question. If what you're asking is what she told Ms. McElveen, go on and ask that, but don't precede it with
Yes, Your Honor.
testimony.
Beg the court's indulgence for just a moment. Write your book about a juror whose ex-husband had posted something we now know probably wasn't her ex-husband. Did she have any other ex-husbands that you found out about?
I have no idea.
Well, you wrote, we learned later the ex-spouses hadn't seen each other in 14 years and she had 3 restraining orders against him. Did she have 3 restraining orders against him?
I don't know. That's what she said.
Okay. Did you tell jurors at the end of the trial after President's Day break? President's Day break would have been a Monday, correct?
Correct.
But before Mr. Murdaugh testified, did you tell the jury not to be fooled by the evidence presented by Mr. Murdaugh's lawyers?
Mr. Harpootlian, I never talked to the jurors about any of the evidence
Okay, the
in this
answer would
case.
be yes or no, then you can explain. Did you say that?
No.
Okay. Did you ever instruct the jury to watch him closely immediately before he testified, looking at his actions, looking at his movements? Did you ever tell a jury to do that?
No.
Did you ever tell the jury to pay attention to Mr. Murdaugh's testimony?
To pay attention, not specifically to his testimony. I did tell the jury to pay attention.
To what?
Just generally in the hallway when I was speaking.
Not to him.
No.
Just any witness.
Right.
Okay. Did you ever warn the jurors the defense is about to do their side? This is right before, right at the beginning of the defense case. They are going to say things that will try to confuse you. Don't let them confuse you or convince you or throw you off. Did you ever tell the jury that?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever tell the jury, if you get emotional, we want to see your face because that is what they want to see? You ever tell them that?
No, sir.
Did you ever tell the jury that Mr. Murdaugh was about to testify?
I didn't tell the jurors that.
Now, did you tell the jury that if they didn't reach a verdict by 10 o'clock, they were going to have to spend the night?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you ever tell them they were going to have to spend the night at
No,
some
sir.
point? Did you ever tell them that they couldn't smoke?
No, sir.
Okay. You got any other books in the works?
No, sir.
I mean, doesn't this make a good book?